Okay. So let's start from your side, your introduction. Can you please tell something about your current role, your past work, number of years of experience, and your studies, which you have received?
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for this invitation. My name is Anirban Parwa. I have close to 17 odd years of experience in management consulting and in technology sector. I started my career from Infosys Technologies in India, and I have spent around 3 to 4 years working with Infosys, IBM, Mindtree Consulting on the IT delivery and the sales side. And then after my MBA, I moved on to work with on the management consulting. So I have spent close to 12 or 13 odd years in management consulting, working with the likes of Big Four and the Tier 1 firms. And my domains have been cross-functional across corporate strategy, working on things like feasibility studies, financial transformation, looking at enterprise-wide transformation, and such likes of that. And of course, I have spent a good amount of years in the different countries, traveling across more than 6 to 7 countries. I've stayed across in the Middle East, in the Southeast Asia, and I have gained experience working with different cultures, mostly on the deal strategy side, the deal strategy work and the deals work, right from pre-deal to in-deal to post-deal kind of work. Apart from that, I have also worked on enterprise digital transformation. Currently, my role here is of a principal, and I'm working with the Infosys Consulting. The team which I work and lead is the enterprise digital practice here, and I have close to around 7 to 8 members in the team, whereby I am working with A on ICT, or you can say the information communication and transformation strategy, data and analytics led work, and finally is around working on some of the problem solving exercises which leads to AI and ML use cases. So that has been my experience over of around 17 odd years, predominantly management consulting, but to some extent I've worked also on the technology side.
All right. Now coming to the questions, we have first part, that is, who is a digital transformation consultant? So here your
Mhm.
first question is, what are some challenges you face as a digital transformation consultant?
Okay, so in terms of first the digital transformation consultant, it's about I have spent around what close to 5 years while doing digital transformation, and prior to that, my only brush was that time it was called not called digital, it was IT as such. IT delivery and sales we used to doing. It was not at all digital that time. So whatever I am going to tell right now is around my current 5 years of experience. So typical challenges which I face, number one is around the definition part. How do you really define digital? Is digital means going from paperless to automation? Does digital means going agile? Does digital means looking only at the customer business model? Or does digital means only transforming your supply chain and automating your parts and looking at some of the AI ML problems? So what is the definition is one of the key challenges and things which we face when we talk with the clients and solve their problems. Second area is the baggage of the overload of not knowledge people have. People typically come from the IT sector and they think any IT project is a digital project, which is not the case. Business supersedes the IT. IT always has been a support and enabler. It is just because now the realms have changed, IT is coming to the forefront, doesn't mean that digital is all about IT. So that is the second part where the people come with a heavy baggage and we have to make them unlearn to learn a new thing. Third part is the inertia of the culture. People are used to waterfall models. People are not used to agile ways of working. People don't trust a model which they have been working with 15, 20 years and all. So the inertia to change is a big thing. And hence, change management aspect is a big challenge. Just not knowing digital or technology or strategy is enough, but change management, understanding the repercussions and also the transitions for people, what they have to have for a digital project is very important. Last but not the least is a very key thing is that digital involves multiple interactions and multitasking with different department, right from the CEO office to the IT department to suppliers and all those things. So the ecosystem of interaction increases heavily. Thereby, there is no accountability. However, the touch points are very huge. And that is one of the biggest challenge to really make a digital project a success.
All right. Coming to the next one. What are the pitfalls or traps which can derail the digital transformation?
Okay, so digital transformation, what is understood is people understand it as a one pill wonder. However, I consider it as an intravenous medicine for a business. Now, what that does mean? It is a continuous change versus a short term assignment to really solve a business critical or a burning platform issue. So, the pitfalls of digital or a digital transformation projects could be divided into, say, into three parts, I would say roughly. One is around looking at, uh, are you solving the right problem? If you get too much cluttered around different things and working on different kind of short term issues, you lose out on the big picture. So are you solving the right problem is one of the big questions, and it's a pitfall. If you're not going on the right track, you are wasting your money, your investment goes for a toss. That's one of the areas. The second area is around, do you have the right metrics or the right return on investment metrics, which is, I would like to break it down. The return on investment is just not investment. It could be time to market, it could be the accuracy levels, it could be even looking at how you can get more and retain your customers and develop and build your customer profitability. And last but not the least is employee productivity. So these are some of the things where if you don't have a clear cut business case, that's a heavy pitfall. Third part is that on the digital part, when people go that, the talent and the culture part. So people come from different organizations and different backgrounds with different kinds of work. Some come from digital natives, some are coming from digital resistive companies which are not digital as sort. So the IT and the OT part, the IT is the information technology, and the OT is the operational technology, and the third one, I would say, the human technology. That's our brain. If we are not really working together, the digital transformation pitfalls are really happen there, where we are not able to measure how much of integration we have done, how much of transition we still need to do, and finally, what are the kind of issues which might come in, not now, but maybe going into the future. So those are some of the pitfalls which we think need to be taken care of.
Okay, it was very insightful. Now, coming to the third question. What were the challenges you have encountered while working on projects with different teams?
Now, different teams. Again, I would like to put this into perspective that I have worked across multiple geographies and I've traveled across different regions and all. So I'll divide this answer into two parts maybe. One is around working with cross-functional teams. That's a typical challenge which we have. So that is one of the challenges which we have to overcome when we are working with digital kind of projects or something like a strategy project. Second is working with cross-border teams. That's another part, and that could have a part which is cross border within your organization, or it could even go into working with cross mix, whereby you are controlling a client team which you are responsible for, and also your own internal team. So in the first part, where we are talking about cross functional, handling different team members is a way where it does not go by the traditional approach of training and then do some KRAs and set some goals and manage them, the teams through KRAs. What happens is that one is that you need to really create a kind of a growth path for that person in order to grow in your team. But he has to also have some KRAs and some kind of I would say benchmarks or some kind of metrics which can help them to work and collaborate with other teams. That's the cross-functional nature. So you should have some cross-functional metrics to really invoke your team to do better. That's one around the cross-functional teams. Second, when we go to the cross-border teams, it's all about sensitivity. It's all about understanding their culture. And secondly, is also about understanding their maturity level in terms of understanding digital terms, understanding what could digital projects could do, and last but not the least, the organizational maturity becomes a very important part. So you have to take your cross-border teams, one from a language perspective and other cultural perspective, which are softer side. The harder side is around technologically how much mature they are, or do they really understand the problem? Do you need a lot of hand holding versus giving them hand off process? So that's the part. The third and the toughest part is, which I have dealt with working with an example, is that working with one of the ministries in the Middle Eastern market, which was completely, they were speaking in a different language. It's a very difficult team to manage where you don't understand their language and you have to really manage that team. So in a government setup, and thereby we were working on a cross mix kind of a team, and that was a client team. There, the challenge was, one is that, one, how do you really motivate them, because you are not their direct kind of reporting manager. Second was more important, that if they are are kind of I would say responsible for some task and their KRAs are set by somebody else, how do you really influence them? That's the second important part. And net, what becomes important is that managing client teams is a matter of sensitivity. How much leeway you can give versus how much stringent you become. So these are some of the challenges which we face across different teams when we work with.
All right. Now we have, is there something that you do not like about being a digital transformation consultant?
I dislike or like. Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is there anything which you don't like being a digital transformation consultant?
Okay, so predominantly my background has been management consulting, and I am just a newbie to the digital world and the digital transformation. Uh, Probably I'm taking a baby steps. I am not really well versed with the jargons. However, I don't feel so that the jargons are one part of it. The second part is the technology bit, where you need to really understand what exactly is going behind the scene and the architecture part. So being a digital transformation consultant, I would like to look at some of the areas where I'm not good at, and those are the places where I don't like. One is technology. Definitely, I have not spent much time in technology world. Hence, understanding architecture, understanding interoperability, and understanding maybe how the integration happens is not my cup of tea. So that is where I really don't enjoy. I enjoy creating use cases. I enjoy creating roadmaps and all. So that's where I really don't enjoy much as a digital transformation. If I want to change, I will want to change that part. And I think that's one of the critical part where we cannot change much. If you have to be a digital transformation consultant, we need to know architecture. Very important thing. The second bit is around the part where I'm coming from a strategy world and from a consulting sector. Much of the terminologies are not respected in the digital world. When I say respected, means that digital is all about collaborating, co-working, and co-creation. It's all about that. Strategy has been always on that part where it was more about the echelons of kind of a closed framework where you hide more than you say, and you have to very suave in terms of how you really talk to your clients and all. So thereby strategy consultants are not very much trusted when it comes to digital transformation, unless until this guy has spent a good number of years working on native digital companies or on the product background side. So what I really dislike is around the part that people start judging me that he's a strategy consultant and typically he may not know much digital, and hence he will not understand our language or what we are trying to do, right? So that's the kind of a thing which I'd like to really take out and say that digital is not only about technology, it's about everything, and we'll come to that definitely.
Okay. The next is, how frequently do you need to travel and how does that affect you?
So again, traveling, when I was working on the management consulting part, it was very hectic, and I was living out of kind of bag, a backpack, I would say, not even a suitcase. I used to run every other day, and it used to happen even when I was in India. That time also, uh, I, I used to call my wife and I used to say that I am taking the Airbus every Monday morning, and I'll be back on Friday to do your household chores. So that was the kind of a life I had spent for nearly 10, 12 years. But when I moved on to an enterprise digital practice and came back here, digital projects are kind of I would say long running, multi-year projects, multi-year engagement. However, being part of the Infosys consulting unit, I have been traveling once in a while, once in a quarter or something like that. But when I travel, I stray for at least close to a month or a month and a half in order to really understand the client and deliver that. But most of the work is, of course, done offshore because digital can be done kind of offshore. So there are three phases of doing it. One is where you go and first have an interaction with the client and explain him and then get the job done and get it setting, the mobilization phase. The second part is mostly where you are doing reporting, analysis, and interviews bit, where you need to be on site and travel a lot. The last but not the least piece is around the recommendation or the desktop part, which can be done offshore. So typically, I used to hate traveling, but now I at least I enjoy, because once in a while, once in a quarter, I've been enjoying that. But of course, because of COVID reasons, I am not traveling that much.
So that's the one of the benefit of COVID.
Yeah, the quality time.
Okay. Yeah. So we are done with the first segment. Then we have career opportunities. Here, how important is it to how important is it for a digital consultant aspiring to be equipped with technical skills? And are people with technical background preferred for the digital transformation role?
Uh, I'm a clear example of a non-technical person who spent at least maybe I would say only 3 to 4 years in technology sector, and then I moved on to management consulting, and I'm back again on the enterprise digital part, working for a technology giant in India, and managing digital projects. So what it shows is that, one is that you don't need to be a very deep technology person and a knowledgeable person. But having said that, there's a caveat. We will still need to have people who are digitally qualified, or I would say technologically up to date, because one person cannot do a complete digital transformation. One person can create use cases, one person can create business case, one person has to do architecture, another person has to do customer journeys, the another person has to do a database and data lake formation, and hence the kind of work has been distributed. So you need to have some kind of specialization with you. So coming from a non-digital world, I would say from a consulting world, what did I bring to the table was my analytical power. The second was around working with a lot of analytics project. However, they were not technology driven; they were more Excel driven. Typically, consultants work with Excels and PowerPoint. So the transition has been very easy. And what I would suggest is to people is that definitely technical is required. It's a plus if you know an R or a Python on your CV. However, it's not a must. What you need to know is more important is that, are you aware of the how the sectors are getting impacted? What are the typical use cases which happens in the market, which shows your domain stream? And the third, but not the important criteria is, uh, do you really appreciate technology? If you have an appreciation for technology, you can learn technology in anywhere. And when I say learn technology, it's not about coding. It's learning about the overall how technology enables your business. So that's more important as a digital consultant.
All right. Now we have, which sector do you think demands a better understanding of technical aspects in the field?
Now, if you ask me, um, I would put across digital transformation into two parts. One is end-to-end digital transformation, which we call as enterprise digital transformation. The second part is around functional transformation, which are about solving point solutions or point consulting, which could be driven by an AI, ML, RPA, or chatbot and robot. So they are trying to solve point solutions and maybe decision making. When it comes to enterprise digital transformation, now there the part is that it involves a lot of multitasking, and you need to have a good number of gray hairs to solve those kind of issues, because it involves not only organization but change, enterprise, IT, architecture, and all. So just to understand, your question was what? Could you just repeat that question, please? Sorry.
Same question.
Yeah. Please, could you repeat the question?
Like, which sector do you think demands a better
Right.
understanding of technique?
Okay, so to get to the sectors part, I would say that typically digital transformation can happen across three major buckets. One is on the customer side, which I would call the customer experience part, which involves customer segmentation, looking at the customer touch points and looking at the top line growth which you get from the customers. The second is around the, I would say, around more around operations or the process part, which is around process performance, workforce enablement, and all those things. The third is around digital business model, which is around servitization of a product, or looking at how globalized is your digital services, can you create digital products and all. If you look at these three buckets, now if I say the sectors which are kind of taken a leap forward is people who are cash rich, something like a banking industry or a retail industry or a telco, or people telco are of course lagging. So these are some of the sectors which are have taken a big leap in terms of one is that they were already technologically advanced, and they had to really reorganize their structure and their technological assets to become more digital. And they are typically not the digital natives, the fangu companies of the world, right? So they were more services oriented or a product oriented, and they're slowly moving towards a platform oriented culture, which is like the Amazons and the Apples of the world, right? So that is one area where one set of sectors are lying, which is BFSI, retail. I would say to some extent, healthcare is also going in that direction because there's a need of the hour, right? That's one. Second area is where the asset intensive companies, which is typically, I would say, the classical companies, the manufacturing sector and all those things. So they are also not very much into digital as such, but they are trying to now experiment with a lot of sensors, IoT, and cloud and smart cities and all. So they are also investing a lot, but they're kind of taking baby step. They're not very kind of adaptive there, and because of the heavy kind of IT and OT integration, which is not very easy right now. The third grade of clients, I would say that typically the visionary clients. These are typically the startups which are trying to disrupt the model. It could be a Flipkart, it could be a Zomato, and all those startups which could be coming up with a kind of a problem statement, and they just solve a niche problem through digital transformation. So three main areas is one is around the big cash rich players like the BFSIs and retails. The second area is more around the brick and mortar classical companies which are trying to really grow out of their kind of environment and become more digitally savvy and digital explorer. I would call it digital explorer. The third bit is more about the digital transformers. They are the mostly the startups who lead that thing, or I could even take the fintechs. The fintechs are going strong in terms of as a sector that has got a lot of promising future.
Okay. Now we have problem solving.
Right.
Okay. Are there any specific frameworks you use regularly, and could you walk us through the same?
That's a very interesting question. Again, see, being a consultant, when we enter consulting industry, we get trained on a lot of frameworks. We in fact prepare for our interviews or case studies how we really use the frameworks. But when it get into the real world, frameworks are of not much of value. However, we still rely on framework because it gives you a clarity in your thought process. For example, a cost benefit framework. It may not be a framework, but it is very commonly used across the consulting world. So, and we have to be very much messy around the cost benefit kind of framework. Other framework is around comparing businesses or comparing business divisions, and I call that a very interesting framework is around value profiling, where on your y-axis is all your I would say the attributes which you want to track in terms of high, medium, low, and on your x-axis you plot all yourself and your competition, and you try to see where are you figuring out. So you create a value curve for your company, and you can compare your value curve with your competition. So that's a very interesting and a very simple tool, and it's a business alignment tool. You can call it a competitive assessment tool, you can call it a product positioning tool, or all those kind of things. But again, there's nothing like a, I would say, not say use a 4P or a 4C kind of a thing, but it is a very essential tool to understand and quickly compare how is your business and your products doing vis-a-vis the competition. The third very important thing which we really play, because consultants are always working on time critical and time bomb, I would say time bomb projects, which are like ranging from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, or to maximum going to up to 12 weeks. So here the most important thing is coming around is uh, understanding the depth of a problem. To understand the depth of problem, we use typically decision trees, which is a very very elegant way of understanding. It's not about a professional but also personal field also. You can look at it, that how can you use decision trees to help you. The third the last is around, if you are using decision trees, you also need to use something called as I'm trying to remember, is around I mean, you create all those frameworks around what works with you, internal, external. Maybe you can look at, there could be a framework around profitability, which is your own kind of a profitability framework. It is not the typical revenue minus cost framework, right? So these are some of the frameworks. But again, we as a consultant, we never go with a framework. Again, if I say I am trying to solve a complex problem, we try to break it down into decision trees. We try to create a fact-based a kind of a investigation. It's like a detective. You are a business doctor, and then finally you go about applying some of the frameworks in order to see that are you not missing something. That's the only place where we really need a framework. If you are missing something, you take the help of framework, that are you covering all the field positions before you really recommend to a client, because you should not be flat-footed when you are going to in front of the client. So framework help you to just to create a more distilled synthesis of your analysis.
Okay. Again, same thing. What is MESI? What do you understand by MESI? And how is it helping to solve problems in consulting life?
Right. So again, MESI is a very, very common consulting word, and consultants use it across. It originated from McKinsey, definitely, but again, it has been used across the globe by different consultants. What to me MESI means is about MECE. So ME is about mutually exclusive. So if you want to be exclusive, what does that mean? That you don't want to have any overlaps in your thought process. So that's the whole thing. So it's the keyword is no overlap when you're thinking. The CE stands for collective exhaustiveness. Now, exhaustiveness is a perspective that are you covering your grounds well, and do you know the sector or the industry or the business well, and you are not leaving any stone unturned, right? It also does not mean that you are boiling the ocean. You have to go with a 80-20 Pareto principle when you're doing MESI. So MESI cannot be done in I would say in isolation from a Pareto principle. You need to apply MESI with a Pareto. And MESI and Pareto is one framework which I can say I can close my eyes and say 95 or 99% of people will be using as a consultant in their consulting careers, right? But over a period of time, people develop their own MESI models. Like I would say, people, and I was working with one of my partners, and he came up with his own framework of how attractive is a market, or how attractive is as a geography to enter. And he came up with a simple formula that those are simple questions, and those questions become MESI, right? So he used to say that should we go for this market? Could we go for this market? How could we go for this market? See, the questions are already MESI, right? Can we really capture this market? If we fail, what do we do? How do we exit, right? So you see, these questions were at least like a MESI. So he knew, he had a structure in mind that any market entry could be solved across these 4 or 5 problems, right? And even if you go into case study examples also, that people go with that kind of a thing, that you need to ask the right questions before you even go into any frameworks. So that's the key important thing message, that what is your objective, what are your key questions, and then look at, can you apply a MESI on that. MESI is that the only way of looking at it. The other part of MESI is that I can put an example here, and that's a thing recently we did with the banking sector, right? And it's a very valid example. We tried to help out a client which was a savings bank in Middle East, and the whole problem statement was that this client wanted to see the digital interventions in the savings branch account. So it was not a problem. It was a problem statement, but it was more looking towards the solution. So can you give a solution which is MECE oriented for solving my savings bank problem? So there we looked at it into four, five things. Like one was that what is customer experience means to the bank, right? It's a savings bank. So there is no processing fee. It's only deposits, and they just get the interest rate. So first thing is, most important thing is, rates are important for them. So they want to know what is the rates, and is it like in India? People always go and benchmark the rates, and then they go for what kind of saving they will, if it could be FD or savings and all. So that's the rates part. So we need to look at how we can really come up with a digital solution. See, when we are talking about the problem, we are also looking at the solution, that what could be digital intervention to improve the rates, or to predict the rates, what needs to be done based on RBI or repo rates and all, right? The second area was, because of a lot of digitalization, they wanted to reduce their workforce. That was a problem statement, but we made it into that solution was a more of a contactless branch, which could be an intervention of a mobile digital world, or even it could be a smartphone, or a AR VR kind of an intervention, right? So we looked into the solution because the problem was to reduce the workforce. The third area was more about looking at the branch operations. So can we reduce the branch operation cost? So that was another area where we looked at the branch manager being a bottleneck, and how we can really create solutions around the branch manager so that he get a better visibility around how people are working and the productivity and all. And that could be one area. The last but not the thing was around NIMs, the net interest margins. How could we really predict and help and grow our net interest margin? So there was a question, and a solution was more toward looking at creating a data lake of their whole historical interest rates movements and all, and looking at what is the regulatory patterns, and then coming up with a kind of a algorithm which could help them to predict how the net NIMs could move in the next quarter, and they could thereby adjust their savings rate, right? So if you see the whole MECE case was built not to solve a problem. The problem was simply their savings bank. They wanted to improve the customer experience. We broke it down into MECE for solutions. So MECE not only can be applied for problems, but also it can be applied for solutions.
All right. It was very knowledgeable. Now, again, you have already covered this one. Can you share an example of MECE in a consulting firm? It's covered. Now, the next one is, how does hypothesis testing work, and what, in your terms, is a good hypothesis?
Okay. So this is again. Let me differentiate first MECE versus hypothesis. Sorry, a decision tree versus an hypothesis tree. Decision tree is all about issues and sub issues, and you can look at as a kind of a subset of a hypothesis tree. Hypothesis is about looking at I would say, going ahead and determining what could be the problem, and using data to disprove or prove the whole statement. That's the whole thing. In issues, you just note down the issues in a MECE format and create a decision tree. So that's your issues and sub issues. So that will help you to really go and do a root cause analysis. So it is an issue tree helps you to think in a lean way, think in a Six Sigma way, or it can even allow you to think in a MECE way. Hypothesis is comes with experience. Hypothesis comes at once a person who has got a good amount of industry knowledge, a technology and a digital knowledge, and he has also a people management knowledge. Once he has this experience, he can design a hypothesis. And the example would be like what we did recently for a steel company in Southeast Asian market. Was they came up with a problem statement, which was how we can, and it was steel manufacturing, how we can improve their uh, yield, energy, and throughput of their electric arc furnace. So that was the question statement. The problem statement was that. So we went into a hypothesis that you are facing problem because of couple of things. The manufacturing part, there could be the yield, the energy part, there could be the throughput, the efficiency part, and there we devise the questions that is your pellet quality not up to mark, and hence you are wasting a lot. So that's a question, that's a hypothesis, and we went about searching data and disproving and proving that is it right or not. Then we look at, is your gas burning optimized, and can we really save on gas to improve the whole yield part, right? So the yield can also be improved by the gas or the burning thing. The third part is that, are you looking at the right kind of sourcing, and can we look at rationalizing our vendors, looking at from multi-source to a single source or a dual source kind of thing. So we can look at how we can improve the yield also by around that yield and energy and the productivity of your whole plan. And that where we asked those questions, and we went about searching for the hunting for the facts and data to prove or disprove it. So that is about calling as hypothesis. What I like about hypothesis is that hypothesis, you start with a kind of a hunch or a guess estimate in mind, and you are not boiling the ocean. You are not going in a top down or a bottom up approach. You really drill down to the problem, and maybe you could be outlandish in your description, but you use that problem statement, and using facts you justify or kill that hypothesis. So hypothesis is good for some people who are not really married to their married emotionally to their solutions. Decision tree works better for a person who is more process driven. However, a person who is more rational and more, I would say, uh, more right brain oriented guy would be looking towards an hypothesis driven structure. Again, the hypothesis comes majorly from a science corollary, which has been borrowed into consulting world. Right?
Okay. In between, I could see audio video mismatch for 1 second. So for now, I'll just switch off my camera. Maybe it will help.
Okay, so do you want me to repeat the answer?
No, no, that was only 1 second. So let's see what we can do with that. There was 1 second or 2 second.
Okay.
Coming to the next one, we have what are the advantages and disadvantages of being hypothesis backed, and would you recommend it for any professional? I think you have covered this one.
I can give a quick answer to it. Hypothesis backed
Yeah.
hypothesis backed solutions are, if you have a time crunch. One is the time crunch. You need to come up with a very quick answer. Okay, if you are doing solving a short term firefighting issue, if you are solving something where you have a lot of experience, these are some of the areas where hypothesis backed solutions are really easy for people to buy in, and it can easily be worked out. However, hypothesis does not, many a time doesn't work out. It's a kind of a statistical way of looking at things, because it comes from a scientific terminology, right? You come up with a assumption or a presumption and go about proving or disproving it. It's a very uh, biased way of looking at things, because if people have a bias, they come up with a question or a hypothesis. They go about either disproving or proving based on what the client wants. However, they miss out on the problem statement there, right? Hypothesis again could not always could be messy, because one, the bias comes in because of your industry experience. Second is that hypothesis doesn't look into the overall problem from a very broader scale, or you'd say from a helicopter view, which a decision tree definitely does, right? So that way, hypothesis may not be applicable at all the places where you really don't have a control over it, especially in complex digital problems or say AI problems. It has to be done using a decision tree format.
Okay. Now, how do you figure out which fact based analysis to perform and what questions to ask in order to prove or disprove a hypothesis?
So I can take an example like uh, this is a hypothesis where I will take an example of a digital store, a digital or a brick and mortar store, and which we had worked around. Now, if I had created a simple digital tree, I will or I would say a decision tree there, it would have been, I would have thought about it. The problem statement is how to improve profitability. That's simple as that, right? So this is a physical store which is lying to go into maybe an online store, and they have an online presence and a physical presence, right? So now, and more of, you think about it like a fashion apparel kind of a store, right? So now, if I put it in a typical hypothesis driven structure, I would say that I will divide my questions into two parts: digital in-store questions, digital out-of-store questions, which is digital out, and I'll explain that. The third one is physical in-store and physical out-of-store. So what is digital in-store question could mean? To me, there would be digital in-store question could be that how people are purchasing and what is the purchase wallet on their mobile phones, and can we really increase that? So that could be a question which we can ask as an hypothesis. On the digital out of store question, it could be something around asking that say they could be having own devices or kiosks which are there in on different malls and all. How is the response and the conversion rate from the kiosk, and can we really increase the number of kiosks to increase our outreach? So that's a question which we can ask, right? The third area is physical in store. Physical in store is around store formats, the categories, and looking at the layout and the assortment, and how you are shelving your products, right? So there could be a question which could be around that: is your assortment mix right, or are we facing kind of stockouts, and we need to investigate, right? That's one of the things. Or we can say, is stock out the reason for your lower profitability? So there are multiple questions we can come out on the physical in-store kind of thing. Physical out of store is all about branding and marketing through, say, magazines or some other web channels and all. So there we can, the more important question would be that is your click-through rate the comparable with your competitors, and do we really need to improve our impressions or our conversions in order to make your digital customer buy more from your digital channels, right? So there could be questions around that. So again, for these questions, which are hypothesis related questions, fact gathering will be happening through multiple mediums. One could be typically like a mall or a shopping store like that. You could do a mystery shopping, or a mystery shopping and understanding and talking with customers and giving customers uh, getting their feedback one another here. Second could be expert interviews. So you can look at going about talking to some of the experts which are there in the retail field, and it could be in-house or it could be even external who are well established in their industry, right? So you get the kind of outside in perspective. Third is the inside out perspective, where you try to interview and work with the management and the staff to understand the psychographics and the demographics of how they are selling and how they are marketing. So those could be input points. So you triangulate all these ideas, one coming from the mystery shopping, second could be the interviews, the primary interviews, and the third could be definitely your secondary research, to come up with a kind of a SWOT, or I would say SWOT for that question, I would say. So what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities, or what are the areas of improvement, right? So again, for that question specifically, let's say to digital out of store, and that will help you to really come up with a model. Now, a model could be as extensive or expensive as a statistical model, or it could be even a simple model where you could just tabulate the results and use that to either prove or disprove your hypothesis. So that's how you go about doing a fact-based thing. Again, it all depends upon how much time you have, how much of information sources you have, what are those identified well enough, and is that information freely available or not? Like typically in the Middle East market, if you, I was giving an example of Middle East market, there the data is very thin, and you cannot easily get data like you get in India or in US, right? So you have to work with limited amount of data, and then thereby your hypothesis has to be proven or disproven with that limited amount of information, and you rely mostly on your primary interviews to give a judgmental information around your hypothesis.
All right. Now, can you talk about one or two very interesting projects that you worked on and key takeaways from it?
uh, Again, this is related to digital, or you are talking about strategy, and I need to clarify.
Yeah, it's up to you. The project which you have taken in
Okay.
past.
Okay, so let me talk about one project, which is kind of a complete strategy, pure play strategy work. This project was about looking at a problem statement where we were working in the Middle East for a large fast food chain, and the problem statement was that one is their profitability was declining, their store profitability was declining, and second is that they wanted to understand what is the next frontier they should be moving towards. Is it like they should be in their existing business, or should they diversify into new businesses and all? So there, this problem statement was into two parts. One was we divided it into actually four legs of solutioning. One was the environmental scanning bit, which was more to do with market research, looking at the environment, how things are working out, looking at the competition, what is the store profitability, what is the revenue share per store, and such kind of things. So, which is more about the environmental, looking at the competition and their internal current state understanding. The second bit was around strategy formulation. Now, that was a very challenging part where we had to understand what was the major objective. Is profitability decline was the major objective, or they were looking at growing their stores in order to increase their market share. So it was a kind of a two-pronged thing. One, they wanted to arrest their profit, control, and maybe at least understand the profitability issues across each store, and thereby control those issues. The second was around understanding how they can grow their market share. So they were the number two in the market. They wanted to at least go closer to the leader, right? So to understand these two questions, we went kind of a top-down estimation where we did a kind of a revenue mapping across different stores, different types of categories, different districts and geographies, how the each stores were doing, and we came up with a store-wise understanding around their operations, around their financials, and last but not the least around their resources, because typically fast food business was around typically revolving around the cost which are related to real estate, the raw materials, and your people. So we wanted to understand all those details. Once we understood that, our strategy formulation ideas came that they were in three businesses. One was bakery, the second was meat processing, and the third was their fast food outlets, which is the selling the burgers and all, right? We found that the bakery business was something which was not doing well, and they were selling it in the outside the market, and it was a very small minuscule of their margins. The meat processing was a very high margin business, but they were overproducing and there was a lot of wastages. The third bit was their fast food burger business, which has been thing. So the question to the client was that, do you really want to be a burger focused company, or do you want to be known as a fast food chain for the local community, because they're trying to put that. So we got the answer from them that they wanted to be a burger focused company, and their whole target was to achieve to the number one status, right? So what we had to do is that we had to look at how we can divest the bakery business, and that was a kind of a very close to their heart, because a lot of the founders were also involved when they started up with a bakery business which has been 100 years old, and they slowly moved into fast food business. So it was very difficult for them to really come up with a plan to leave their business, right? So we had to come up with a different option, that you look at a phased approach of selling out your bakery to your competition. Okay, so that was one good suggestion we made. On the meat processing side, we found that because the margins are higher and they were wasting a lot, it would only suffice that till the time they increase the number of stores to say X amount, they need to sell outside in the market, and it's also okay if they're selling to the competition, right? So they can make some money out of it. Once the stores expand to the required number to achieve that market share, they can look at, again, everything has to be done in-house. The third bit was around their burger business. The burger business was more about real estate, the store layout, and the third but most important part was their how are they differentiating their product. The product was a burger, right? So burgers are not much differentiated unless until you come up with a differentiated local cuisine sauce, or some kind of partnership which enable and pulls your customer to the store, right? You increase your footfalls. So these are the two things which are the thing. One is footfall, you want to have more footfalls, and second is repeat business, or I would say people should stay more in that store and buy more, right? So to increase that, what we did was that we looked at rebranding, and we suggested to the client that how about not touching the burger, the prices or anything else, because you are anyway a little lower than prices, so you're capturing the volumes here. Look at something else which could really twist the game, which is around the sauces. So come up with some kind of a secret local sauce based on local ingredients, and which could really pull back your customers from your competition. And that was one of the suggestions where we said that the secret sauce is the secret sauce. The other bit was partnerships. So they could not really differentiate in terms of the look and the feel and the kind of investment which their leader was doing. However, we suggested that let's look at some kind of partnership for a kind of a customer which could really become loyal once they grow up, which is the children, right? So we thought about uh, some of the suggestions were like Toys R Us. Can we partner with Toys R Us to come up with a kind of a corner which could be a children's corner, or say I would say a creche facility, which could help people to stay longer, and mothers can also stay longer and spend their kitty parties there. So those were some of the innovative ideas which we came up in order to, because the client didn't want to invest much, so we were looking at these some of these ideas. So overall, this was a kind of a profitability project which was intermixed with a strategy, a laying out strategy, looking at some kind of I would say hard burns when they had to divest their bakery business, and they also wanted to grow their shares, but sorry, their stores, but they didn't have the capital at that moment. So what best we could do? So it was something around what we call as making the best out of your scarcity. So it was a good project which we had done.
Okay. The next is, what was your most challenging case so far and what were some learnings?
Okay, if I think about most challenging case, there could be multiple. It's very difficult to even pinpoint one, but I will take an example of a project which was a very simple project. It was an internal project done for one of the firms which I worked previously, and the whole task was around looking at improving the uh, demand and the supply forecasting, which is typically in most companies the planning, budgeting, and forecasting cycle is done on an Excel sheet. And our job was to really understand what are these psychographics, what are the intentions, what are the biases going into all these calculations, and can we really improve the accuracy levels? If not the accuracy, are we really doing the things right? So the biggest question was, are we doing it right when we are going back to our investor community every quarter? So the whole problem was divided into two parts. One was the demand side forecasting, which came from the salespeople, and the other was on the supply side, which was more on the delivery side. So I'll not name the industry right now, but again, it was more towards the services sector, where the industry on the demand side, we divided the problem across revenue, looking at revenue backed kind of day to day revenue forecasting, and what are the kind of committed projections which the sales people give to us, right? And based on the projection, people make forecast, right? That was a typical Excel based model, and we tried to analyze that. The other side, we were looking at the supply side, where once the sales has been committed and when the project has been created, then we look on the the supply side, where the salesperson's inputs are taken and the supply starts fulfilling that. To fulfill that, they will need resources, they will need assets, they will need IT, infrastructure, and real estate, right? So those things were being fulfilled based on a fulfillment algorithm or a mechanism. So we were doing that. It was challenging because one is that we were working with the top bosses, typically the corporate planning, the CSO of the company. They were involved in it, and they have been working year long. So to change their habit or change their way they review projects, or they review their monthly forecast or their weekly forecast, had to go change. And it was a change which has to be done from a top down rather than a bottom up, because bottom up, people were just data gatherers. They were gathering data and they were assimilating and they were analyzing. However, the top had to be changed. And it involved, rather than we were focusing more on the algorithm and the issues and the pain points, we were more looking towards there, then and there, the change management. It so happened is that some people were very resistive, because it's something like, if you are doing a maths problem and your teacher points your mistake, you become very averse to your teacher. You don't like him. But if the teacher says in a different way that, okay, it's fine, next time you do better, it works well. You get a little inspired. The failure, you forget the failure, you remember the good words, right? So it had to be done in that fashion. So there were some pitfalls. There was some kind of challenges to handle the senior people, how they are really managing the demand and supply forecasting. The second bit of challenge was that we wanted to do away with the human part in the whole forecasting cycle. We thought about introducing ML. It's very recently, and we thought about what algorithms or the regression algorithms we can use, typically regression algorithms, to really manage the forecasting every quarter and every month better, in terms of sales forecasting and supply forecasting. And also that will lead to how much of recruitment you do, right? This came as a big challenge, where uh, there was a political issue around the supply or the delivery managers, who were using bench as a way to show uh, how they are growing their units, right? So the more the bench is always thought as bad, but however they were justifying the bench for in the hope of bigger projects, which had lesser conversion rate, and it was a kind of a cyclic issue. So we had to apply a way of system thinking approach, and we showed them that your approach of being overprotective, of being heavily conservative, is not working out. You need to take a risk, similar to the salespeople, because typically the salespeople are more extroverted, and they are more aggressive, and they go about committing something which they even don't know. Whereas supply people or delivery people are more risk averse, right? So we had to change that whole attitude, and we had to play a more of a wear a hat of critical thinkers, sit with them, understand the design thinking, the process behind what they're doing. And we found that there are simple issues around how the allocation is done, simple issues around how the leaves are given. There are simple issues of busting a process across how a recruitment can be done faster or can be slowed down because of say, a project didn't come up, and hence so forth. So the biggest learning was that there is that uh, handling technology, handling resources, and handling your peers and your team is much easier than handling the uh, expectations, the emotions, and the emotional and the experience baggage which the seniors, or I would say the CXOs carry while they have to transform, because these are 50 plus people, and changing a guy who has been working for last 20 years in a similar fashion, it's a very difficult game. You can teach a child, but it's very difficult to teach a 50-year-old. And how do you really do it? And you cannot just say that tomorrow your job is not required and there's a machine to do your whole forecasting. You have to be cognizant about the human factor while you're playing that game. So a consultant is nowadays becoming more about 80% having soft skills, better communication skills, and better acknowledging the sensitivities around what plays around in an organization, and 20% is the hard skills. So that's what was my learning from this. This was a very challenging project which we did.
Okay. Again, one more case study. So, can you tell some one more case study where you have failed in delivering the outcome and how did you cope with it?
Right. Again, failures are kind of a stepping stone to learn new things, which is my personal philosophy. If I talk about failures, I have had failures miserably many places. Doing presentation to clients, failures, people fail professionally, personally also. So again, I think failures are there everywhere. It's all about how we pick it up. Now, one of the case stories which I have is around the. It was a failure uh, which was which had turned into a kind of a boon for me. It happened so that way back when I was an IT manager, around 15 odd years back. It was a project which we were doing for an internal customer, internal client. We were developing kind of a system which was more of a dashboard. I don't remember much, but again, that was a thing where the project didn't go on time. And typically, IT projects are monitored by seniors in terms of budget, in terms of timelines, and all. So I was the project manager, and I was leading a team of 3 or 4 people to develop this kind of a dashboard. In between, what happened is that one of my co-workers left the company. It also happened that one of the co-workers had a planned leave, and we had to respect that. So we were working in a shrink team. So the failure happened because we were working in a smaller team. We were not able to deliver on time. Period. However, how did we overcome that failure? Is that one is that it's not about the role, it's about the goal, they say, right? So we had a goal that we had to deliver this dashboard for the benefit of a senior salesperson who can have visibility and thereby create more revenues for the company. So we had that goal in mind. Even at all, we were not able to reach that goal, and we had a personal goal towards him to deliver it on time. Because of a resource crunch, what we did is that I had to leave away my managerial responsibilities, my resource management, and my quality management and defect management responsibility, typically which is there in a project management setup, and become a coder. So there is no shame in rolling your hands sleeves up and start coding or getting as a team member. And I doubled up as a team member, and during those period, the respect from my team really went up, notches up, and I was able to deliver with some delay a good product, and thereby as a project manager, I'm more there. I work more of like a coder than a project manager. However, I played a dual responsibility. So this failure had a lot of learning for me when I went into my management consulting days, where it doesn't matter whether you're a partner or a director or a manager or an associate. What matters is your insights. What matters is how much of value you are bringing into the client. And we play by the hours game. So are you contributing more than the hours which we are charging to our client? And that has been a kind of a learning stone for me wherever I go and do projects.
Okay. Now, can you talk about one case where you had the most satisfaction with the impact?
Um, I will. Okay. This could be a pretty much a case around. I'm trying to think a project which you. Okay, that's a good one. I remember now. It was a project which we had done for a bank, and it's a global bank, and we were working on uh, changing the ways of working. It was a 3 month engagement. I was leading it, and it involved one looking at their IT department and looking at their business, not as a business as a whole, but more about business operations and how really can really improve their ways of working. And I was very new to this project, and I had didn't know anything about what do you call agile, what do you call safe, and all such thing. And this was an expectation from the client, and I was leading that thing. So and we had to do a lot of work, and I would say a lot of background work in order to understand what is design thinking, how is agile, can we do agile, where are the places we can do agile, what are the technologies and platform which could enable us to do agile. So even before we got into the bank environment, we had to do a lot of desktop studying, or I would say typically night outs, to understand this project. And this was an on-site project. So we went to the client, and the good part and the good learning was that uh, when we landed, we were treated like an agile consultant. And we started from day one. We were advising them, we were training them on agile. That was one part of the story. The second part of the story was uh, because of working in a different cross border, I would say, I would bring back my previous understanding around working with different teams and managing a client who does not speak our language in an Eastern European market. and then understanding the rules and regulations for banking in a very short period was very, very tough for us. What we did was that in order to crunch our learning time, we had a minus 1 week, which was more about mobilization part. We spent that time really, really to getting to know people around, and to understand their whole, I would say, the whole ethos and the logic behind why they are working, what are their aspirations and intentions. And it started from the CIO level, and it went down to typically a data analyst level. We were talking with everyone, and we went made some good friends around it. When the project started, it was a completely a kind of a restructuring which had to happen, and we were to be very sensitive around what we are trying to say. So even a design thinking or a blackboarding exercise was also taken with very much of preparation, and people came very much prepared. And because we had made them quite a conversational, we were not sitting cross table, we were actually sitting side table. So that was a kind of a confidence which we got from the client, and we bought in that confidence because the kind of rapport which we created. Overall, the project went very smoothly. It was a kind of a restructuring which led to layoff of people. And how sensitive could be that subject be, considering it just happened before COVID, right? And people were very much concerned, and how really we sensitized the subject. We used a lot of tools like starting from a business case to a design thinking workshop to using change management and change impact framework, also looking at how we can tweak the KRAs of a person in order to help them to get repositioned, repurposed, or replaced, right? So it was a very sensitive subject, and I had a very, very tremendous fun in working with that project. One, because it was not about technology, though it was working with technology company and technology people, right? But it was more about change management, agile, and I would say more about wearing the hat from a CEO at a point of time that we were thinking that we are going to lay off these people. Where are these people going to go? What is the golden parachute package we should be giving out to them? Should we give it out to them, or should we still have them on board and maybe look at a very phase-wise manner? So we did a lot of exercises back and forth. We went through, I think, 10 or 15 iterations of the business case itself, because it's a very sensitive subject, and with different levels of rounds, talking with executive member, the stakeholders, then the board, and different presentations who had different kind of risk element and different kind of sensitivities to be tackled, and different perspectives came into mind, which we were not even thinking, right? So culture, the training, and simple things like and housekeeping staff to be reduced. Where do we replace them? They are not even useful for the bank, right? So do we really reduce them? Do we really replace them? What do we do that? So as simple as that. It's not a data scientist we are talking about. We're talking about housekeeping stuff. So it was a very sensitive subject. We had to go very, very smoothly, and I enjoyed. At the end of it, the accolades came from the CEO, who was a regional CEO, and the thing which came out. One thing is that they said that this team was our internal team, and that was the biggest credit we had, because we at one point of time we gelled so much with the team that we didn't feel like as if we are working for a different organization or as if they were our clients. So pretty much satisfied with the outcome, and we got a repeat business from that client.
Okay. Okay, now we have challenges, and I think you have covered this one. What are some challenges you face as a digital transformation consultant? You want to take this question, or you have
Okay.
this one?
See, I would like to answer that more from the challenge perspective. I would say, see, the challenges are multiple. I would rather like to go for what is required for a digital transformation consultant, which I think it's very much important. As I said in the beginning of my conversation, is that people misconstrue the words digital, misconstrue the word strategy, misconstrue the word transformation, right? So a clear definition is half the problem solved. It's about identifying the problem. It's about defining the problem. It's half your problem solved, right? That's very important. And then comes business case, investment, and implementation, integration, resource, change management, people management, and all those things can follow through, right? Now, what are the requirements of a digital transformation consultant? Now, digital is about where to play and how to win. As simple as that. Now, where to play are areas which is more to do with, I would say, a digital transformation consultant needs to understand what are the different kinds of business models which are interplay in that industry. I say industry. Then what could be the different kind of business model which the company is trying to play with or trying to transform. So those are some of the areas where they need to understand from a business model standpoint. The second area is around from a more from a understanding the whole landscape, the organizational landscape in terms of governance, in terms of risk, in terms of controls in place. So that's another bit which a digital consultant should need to know and need to understand that bit. And it can only happen with once you go in the organization and start learning that. The third bit is around looking at understanding and having applied knowledge of the digital technologies in place, which is like the social media, analytics, cloud, IoT, 3D, Industry 4.0. Having an applied knowledge means that you understand some of the business use cases and you understand what are the pros and cons of this technology. It's simple as if you know an iPad and how iPad is different from an iPhone. So that's where you need to understand and appreciate the use cases. The fourth area is around understanding the digital architecture or the architecture part, which is very important because you need to understand how there's an interplay between platforms, applications, devices, and infrastructure. So that's a very key area. Another area to appreciate is that yes, you know the platform, you know the architecture. What you don't know is about customers. So the customer experience or the UX part, I would say, is something which is very key to understand. How can I get the customers onboarded? How can I create more adoption? How can I more create click-through rates? And looking at the growth and the network effect, creating that. So that kind of understanding, which comes from a product background, typically not from a services, but majorly from a product background, has to be some of these nuances which a digital transformation consultant can look at it. And these are some of the parts where is where to play. And how to win is all about looking at, I would say, the process part. What is digital? How digital is different from an commerce or an ERP or from a Lean Six Sigma. You need to have an understanding and appreciation around business process management or business process reengineering. So that's the how to win part, one of the parts. The other part is around the people or the change management or the transformation management aspect. So do you really appreciate how the jobs will get impacted, how the training needs to get impacted, how the leadership needs to be primed up, how the leadership and the success and planning has to be done, and all those things. So that's the change management aspect that to be done. And the last but not the least is around communication management, which is I would say the foundational for any consultant, IT consultant, strategy consultant, digital consultant. You need to know how to have a meaningful conversation and a purposeful objective for any conversation which you have with your client. So these are some of the traits which will make a digital transformation consultant truly digital. However, there could be other things like if you know R and Python and technology part, which could be an added plus to it. But typically, these are the things which goes onto that thing. And an umbrella thing is looking at, are you a good problem solver? Are you doing critical thinking when you are wearing the hat of a consultant? Can you wear the hat of a consultant along with a client? These are some of the critical thinking questions which you need to really do in order to think rationally and logically. And when I'm saying rationally and logically, those two combined will become your creative thinking abilities. So that's where you build trust as a digital transformation consultant. So overall, you need to have a problem solver approach, which is the Mises, which is decision trees, looking at hypothesis. Then below you comes all these layers of where to play. It's about business models and looking at agile platforms, and how to win is a part where you're looking at the process, the people part, the culture part, the change part, and thereby you become a full-fledged digital transformation consultant.
Okay. Now, what are the okay? It's the repeated one. I'll skip this one. So, what kind of team-related stress do you see as digital transformation consultant, and how do you manage stress among your team members?
Now, this is a very much directly linked question when it comes to stress management and challenges faced by a digital transformation consultant. And I correlate that. Now, stress, which is managed, as I said in the previous answer, is that digital transformation has to be a kind of a multitasker. However, he also needs to be a specialist in few things which are basic common sense, basic problem solving, right? Now, if you don't have some of these attributes, the where to play and how to win attributes of a consultant, it is not a big problem. But if you are not having the mindset of of uh, of a consultant, which is about critical thinking, problem solving, and all those things, it can create a lot of stress. One, because you're dealing with multiple stakeholders. Digital is not about IT. Digital is about business, and business could have different units, different people, different perspective, different emotions, different politics, right? So you have to deal with the sensitivities and perspectives of different people, right? So if you're not having the mindset and soft skills of a consultant, it's a very difficult game, and that could lead to stress. The second stress could be around, like I face, coming from a consulting world. You enter a digital, and you are a digital minnow or a digital toddler. You are learning as you go, and you pick up the wrong things. AI is about decision making. No. AI is about predictive decision making. No. AI is about prescriptive decision making. No. You need to really understand what is AI and what is the AI sublayers. AI is about decision making where it takes the place of a human being. AI is about understanding what are the layers. AI comprises of ML and DL. And ML is supervised learning, unsupervised learning, or it's reinforced learning. DL is about network and neural network learning. Now, having these jargons doesn't help. What happens is that you know these jargons, but when it goes in front of your client, you fall flat. So thereby, it is very important that as a digital consultant, you need to focus on few things. That I want to be a data specialist. I want to be a strategy or a business case specialist, or I want to create value for the company by becoming more of a value realization person, or I want to look at architecture. As I said, like you have to choose your where you want to lead. So you become master of one, and then you become jack of all trades. That's where digital transformation becomes a consultant can really succeed and remove that stress levels. So that's another area where they have to play on the hard side. The third area is actually the transition part. Now, if you are a fresher and you're moving into a digital world, you don't carry a baggage. You can learn and things as you go. But if you are a middle-aged middle-aged person moving towards digital, there is a lot of unlearning which you have to do before you learn new things, right? And you need to wear then a hat of a child in order to learn new things. You have to unlearn a lot, learn new things, and then move to a new way of working. Simple as uh, program manager becomes tomorrow a transformation manager. It's a stress for them. He is a transformation manager for a digital transformation project, but his job is similar to a program manager. But he is not playing a work of program manager. But their transformation manager means a lot of other things. It's change management. It's a change catalyst. You are a stakeholder management. You have to do a lot of program management, uh, project risk management, and such. Right. So the transition from a simple non-digital consultant to a digital consultant is itself a stress. And the last but not the least stress is around your attitude towards digital, which is the inertia or the baggage. You want to be in digital just for the sake of being digital, because digital brings in money, and digital is where all the clients and all the businesses are moving. It should not be your ambition. Your ambition should be towards looking at how I can learn digital to my best ability, leverage whatever I have learned, maybe coming from an IT world or maybe from a consulting world or strategy world, and can I leverage that to superimpose digital on top of my learning, and thereby create a uh, new identity for myself. And that is where we feel very stressed. We lose our identity when we go into digital. First, we don't understand digital. Second, we really are not able to express ourselves in digital world. And it is not the problem of only IT people, or people are coming with a baggage of 15 years baggage from an IT world. It also baggage for people who are tier 1 consultants, who have problem explaining what is digital not only mean, but how do I really do digital. So implementation is the key. So these are some of the stress points which we really need to matter. Digital going forward will become more of a global terminology, which will encompass understanding business side, IT side, and as I said, organization or the change or the people side. So where we play will become a very important part. And how we win are all about tactics and all about our educational or qualificational knowledge. Where we play becomes a very important part as a consultant, and that's where we can really reduce our stress levels.
Okay. Now, what are some strategy challenges you have faced so far, and could you give some example?
Okay. Strategic challenge in terms of execution of projects, or you are talking about clients? Can I be clear on that?
Yeah, like you can take in both ways or either way, in clients also or in the process also.
Okay. So I'll give an answer to this in two parts. One is the strategic challenges what we face while delivering projects to our clients, and I would go with a digital project to explain that. And the other part is the strategic challenges which we face in terms of really, I would say, um, uh, the me part. I would say rather I would say the strategic challenges where we as a consultant have to deliver to the promise, right? So if I look at the first part where we are talking about the clients, the strategic challenges are: one is uh, creating a kind of a storyline or a pitch which the client can understand is in his own words, a digital story with a proper justification, fact-based story has to be sold to a client. So that's a strategic challenge which has to be done in a very simplified manner, and it's a very complex thing to simplify a thing like a digital transformation. So I can take the challenges which the client comes back as saying that, are we doing enterprise transformation? Are we doing functional transformation? Okay, if we are doing functional transformation, what are the strategic challenges? So I would go with those kind of questionnaires and preparations when I'm looking at a strategic challenge. The other kind of strategic challenge is around the the talent and the culture which the client has. Now here there is one hard part, which is the maturity of the client. How mature is the client in terms of